Hello everyone and welcome to Iona's Views and Reviews. Today I'm gonna talk about Gravity, directed by Alfonso Cuarón and starring Sandra Bullock and George Clooney. Ryan Stone, played by Sandra Bullock, is an engineer who is still emotionally dealing with the loss of her daughter and is on her first shuttle mission. She's accompanied by veteran astronaut Matt Kowalski, played by George Clooney, for whom it is his last flight before he goes into retirement. During a spacewalk to surface the Hubble Space Telescope, the two are warned that a Russian satellite has been blown up, which has resulted in a cloud of space debris. The space shuttle eventually gets hit by the debris, and Kowalski and Stone lose contact with Houston. The rest of the movie is basically about how they are trying to get safely back to Earth, before the debris reaches them again in its 19-minute orbit. The acting. The dynamic between Bullock's stressed and absent-minded character and George Clooney's laid-back, at times probably too nonchalant character works out reasonably well, even though it's a bit of a cliché. Sandra Bullock's character is somewhat reminiscent of the one she portrayed in the 1994 movie Speed. Bullock's acting is by far the best of the two actors, especially during the first two-thirds of the movie. Her non-verbal acting is as good as it gets, and she manages to portray the character steadily during 90 minutes, while still going through some character development by overcoming her fears. Overall, this seems like the perfect part to match her specific acting talent, and it's hard to imagine any of the other actresses who were considered for the role doing a better job. George Clooney's performance was okay. It's not particularly interesting in any way, nor is it really bad. It's just George Clooney. And it's very likely that Robert Downey Jr., who was originally cast for the role, would not have done a much better job in the role, despite being a much better actor. This simply has to do with poor writing. Director Alfonso Cuarón wrote the screenplay with his son about 4 years prior to the release of the movie, and it has to be said the script is not of the same quality as, for example, the directing or the score. There's not much of a story or in-depth portrayal of either character, and it's basically a movie about getting from point A to point B. In my opinion, flashbacks would have worked really well for both depth of character and building a contrast between life on Earth and life in space. But it would have also broken the immersion, which is definitely one of the stronger aspects of this movie. Despite the fact that Bullock's character is well written, she doesn't make being an astronaut seem like a job in which, if you don't know what you're doing, trial and error will make you get what you want either way. But again, this has to do with poor writing. The score of the movie is absolutely fantastic, and in my opinion the strongest aspect of the entire film. During the bigger part of the movie it's guiding the tension in scenes without being overdone, and at the exact right parts it comes to the foreground to add an amazing extra emotional layer to the film. Alfonso Cuarón became famous for his trademark long shots in his previous film, Children of Men. He pulls the same trick in Gravity, and even though I consider Children of Men to be a better film overall, the long shots fit Gravity much better. It really helps with creating an atmosphere of being trapped in space. The shots themselves are pretty hard to judge directing-wise, mainly because there is a lot of CGI involved. One of the stronger points of directing in this film is the balance between highly stressful situations and beautiful shots of Earth, which gives the viewer a strange feeling of both familiarity and solitude. Overall, the directing is really good, especially during the heavier action sequences, where the end result is on par with the great directors of grand-scale action sequences, such as Ridley Scott, James Cameron, and J.J. Abrams. My conclusion: while I absolutely enjoyed watching this movie, and I can recommend it to both the hardcore movie fans and the more casual blockbuster viewer, it does feel a bit shallow overall. The movie is highly conceptual and is mainly driven by its special effects, Bullock's acting, and a great score. It's obvious this movie has been made for a bigger crowd. Once again, the immersion is great, but in all honesty, as you're watching, you're never really under the impression that anything might seriously go wrong, which is something that, for example, Apollo 13 did manage to pull off in a similar environment and story. To round things up, I give this movie a 7.2 out of 10. The overall result is a bit disappointing, especially considering it has been 7 years since Cuarón's last movie, Children of Men, which really was a fantastic movie, and if you haven't seen that one, I can recommend it over Gravity. Okay, that's it for today. Feel free to rate this video, comment or subscribe, and until next time.